A Sat Yogi is one who has made the irrevocable commitment to live in truth. Have you made that commitment? Once that commitment has been made, there will be no longer any anxiety or confusion. There will be no question whether life is about financial success or becoming a rock star or a beauty queen or a worldly philosopher or any other egoic manifestation. None of that will have any relevance, because none of that involves the real self. All of that is Maya, false. And the irrevocable commitment to live in truth will mean that life is about liberation, God realization. Not success, but the real. And true greatness can only come from what is real. This does not mean that the production of art, of music, drama, of all of the other manifestations of culture will stop, but they will become acts of service to uplift others, not to display the ego. They will become acts of seva and acts of sadhana that will be the skillful means for attaining the supreme real, rather than avoiding it. And so the irrevocable decision to attain Jivan Mukti, liberation in life, ends all of the questions about how to live the existence that appears in the phenomenal plane. Because that existence has become a simple token of the ineffable presence that functions through the organism, but is not it, and is not enmeshed in its actions or their outcomes. And so the question for a Sat Yogi or a proto-Sat Yogi is, are you now living in time or in eternity? This is a choice of one's perception. Are you eternal presence, or are you a creature scampering through a phenomenal plane in fear and desire and lack, fleeing from your own dread of your false nature, fleeing futilely from the fear of death, and recognizing the meaninglessness of such an animal existence. Have you chosen to recognize that you are not the body, the organism, the creature, but the co-creative consciousness that functions through this vehicle? Have you mastered the ego mind so that it no longer produces peacelessness, agitation, anxiety, depression? That it no longer interferes with the presence of that royal supreme presence that is the God Self, who alone has the rightful use of the body. But have you made the body and the mind into the temple of God, so that supreme, loveful intelligence can function without interference through the fleshly vehicle? Or has the ego usurped that vehicle for its own jouissance, its own enjoyment of futile pleasures that have no value and no true being, because no true relationship to God is the mind still occupied by an infantile consciousness that refuses to grow up, that refuses to let go, that refuses to recognize who you really are? A Satyogi has made the irrevocable commitment to destroy that illusion, to disidentify from whatever egoic thoughts and affects arise. And once that irrevocable decision has been made, they will have no power over you. It will be recognized that all egoic thoughts are illusory and are designed for self-deception. The struggle within the soul at the threshold of a spiritual life is whether to choose the will to truth or the will to ignorance. Because once you have entered into the path of truth, you can no longer deceive yourself. You can no longer pretend that life is about family or career or making money or looking good or having some fame, fortune, or financial security or any of the other goals that recruit the ego to serve the system. Have you attained independence from that collective ego system so that its false values do not dominate your consciousness and cause you to betray yourself and remain ignorant of your true nature, your true power, your true capacity to love, to create, to transform. Has consciousness made the choice that alone gives you the key to power over the egoic mind's determination to hold you back from liberation? Have you overcome the impulse to secrete ego thoughts so that you can meditate in silence and stillness and thus reach union with God? To reach union with God, the meaning of Sat Yoga, there must be a complete disidentification from body, from ego, from any sort of self-image or self-concept, or from the dependence upon language in order to know. To know one's being requires transcendence of thought. It is only after the threshold of silence has been crossed and presence lives without fear or desire, no longer in time or space, but in the eternal emptiness, that the portal to the fullness of the Supreme Presence opens. And consciousness is liberated forever from its delusional identity as a creature having gone through space and time and been defiled and traumatized and tricked and treated in varieties of ways that have left scars and glitches and rips in the soul. But in that realization of the emptiness, all of that past history is recognized as illusion, and it no longer touches or has any effect upon one. For the eternal presence is never modified by time, never changed, never degraded, never subject to inertia, never subject to entropy. Have you chosen to live as your real self? And to let go of the illusion of being a human person? With goals that are always disappointments, or always futility, vanity, and ultimately meaningless manifestations of narcissism. Have you overcome the temptation to that life of meaninglessness? Have you overcome the tendency to be seduced by the sensory, by the imaginary, by the worldly, by the temporal, by all of those false lures that capture the mind on the hook of Maya and cause all of the suffering that you have ever endured? To free yourself from the hook, you must no longer desire the bait. And when you have freed yourself from any attachment, from any greed, from any arrogance and hubris of the ego, to be somebody, when you have let go of all of those desires, to look good for the other, to gain approval, to be an object of desire, to claim a territory, a niche, to free yourself from submission to the rules of the game. Only then does the game itself fall away as an illusion of no relevance. The only judgment that should matter to you is the final judgment that will be rendered by your own self, depending on the courage to live in truth or the cowardice to avoid, and to live in the narcissistic mentation bubble that gives one a sense of superiority and illusory freedom that is based upon the false idea of being a creature in space-time rather than the creative power that is dreaming this world of space-time as its own reflection, its own majestic dream of beauty, of generosity, of wonderment, of love. The great gift that is offered in exchange for your liberation from the ego and its suffering is the blissful realization that you are beyond all of that and have the power to transform the world through your own observation of eternity underlying time, and love pervading even a world of hate, and of truth overcoming the veil of the great lie. Have you gained the power of truth, which only comes after crossing the portal of humility into emptiness? Have you let go of all of the sanskaras of the ego, its tendencies to betray itself, to misuse the body as some instrument of enjoyment as a safety valve. To reduce its anxieties? Or have you become that eternal self that refuses ever to fall into Maya? Have you realized that you have the power to live in bliss, in love, in stillness, unshakable, unperturbable? And to bring peace into this peaceless world, and love into this world of conflict and hatred, and truth into this realm of ignorance, and to graduate from the need to reincarnate into such a world. By attaining union with its creator. This is why we are here. And this is the moment of the climax, the final exam, the moment of truth. Will you choose truth or will you choose the lie? Cowardice or courage? Will you take the step into infinity? And leave behind all the petty thoughts of the ego mind and receive the grace of the infinite, eternal, blissful presence that is the presence of God as yourself. You have the right to claim this destiny. Will you claim your birthright? It cannot be claimed in the future, only in the now. And the sanskara to wait creates a perpetual waiting, a perpetual self-rejection. It is always now or never. May you take this counsel very seriously. And allow yourself to enter into the Holy of Holies within your heart and abide as the One Self, here and now.